This What's Working with Cam Marston podcast is brought to you courtesy of Michelob Ultra Beer.
They say consistency is the key to success. They weren't wrong. So how about grabbing a beer that's consistently smooth, consistently refreshing, and consistently light? You might just find that the road to success can be pretty enjoyable. Michelob Ultra, the perfect balance of taste and refreshment, and only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is the radio show and podcast designed to bring you insights on the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace trends influencing the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace around us. I look for guests that can help us understand the things that are going on out there with the hopes that something they say will make each one of us just a little bit better at whatever it is that we do. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. Again, welcome. Thank you for joining in. I've always wanted to find a social influencer to put on the show. One of these influencers on social media that seem to have a world different than the rest of us, and to learn a little bit about how it is that they do that. How do they get paid? How much do they get paid? How do they prove their worth to getting paid? All this kind of stuff. And these people are somewhat hard to find. And my sense is that when I find them, they're a little bit leery of revealing how they do what they do. Otherwise, other people will be in the business as well. They seem to get a lot of free stuff from the outside looking in. It seems like they get a lot of free stuff. And I'm wondering at what point, free stuff is great, but at some point you got to pay your bills. At some point, the cash has to come into play so that you can pay your bills. How does it all work? Well, I met a guy at a conference not long ago. He gave a workshop on his business and how he does what he does. And I'm going to put him on the phone here just shortly to get a sense of the business that he's created. His name is Jeb Brooks. And I don't know that we would describe Jeb, or he would describe himself as a social media influencer. He's definitely in the content creation game to get subscribers, to get eyeballs. His medium is not Instagram, though he certainly is, or Facebook, though I suspect he is. His medium is YouTube, and he's got tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of followers on YouTube, and gave a presentation on how to do something like this for yourself at this conference that I was in. And I'm just very curious about how it all works. So when we come back from break, Jeb Brooks is going to be on the line with me, telling me about how he promotes or gets paid for recording his travels. He's in the air a lot. I remember when I used to think I flew a lot. He's in the air a whole lot, but not on one airline, but on multiple airlines, evaluating the things that he sees on the plane, the service he gets on the plane, the accoutrements that come to him on the plane, stuff like that, and is somewhat of a celebrity in that space. So when we get back from break, Jeb Brooks, if you're in front of your computer right now, Google his name, go to jebbrooks.com. You'll get a sense of who we're going to talk to, and go ahead and subscribe. Help the guy out. Go ahead and subscribe and learn a little bit more about what it is that he does. So before we go to break, though, not every financial planner is certified. A certified financial planner is someone who has dedicated themselves to the 4 E's of financial planning: education, examination, experience, and ethics. Both Jamie Sandifer and Mark Salyers are certified financial planners at Sandifer Wealth Management. Check them out at sandiferwealthmanagement.com. You can find them online. They're based here in Mobile. They'll serve you wherever you are in the state of Alabama. Good guys doing good things with a great team around them. And I happen to be proud to say friends with all of them. Otherwise, I certainly wouldn't be promoting them like I'm doing. All right, when we're back from break, Jeb Brooks going to tell us about his business, recording his travels on YouTube, and getting paid to do so. Really pretty cool. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. We'll be right back after this break. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. The Alabama Center for Real Estate, better known as ACRE, housed at the University of Alabama's Culverhouse College of Business, is committed to industry engagement and dedicated to shaping the future of real estate through excellence in teaching, research, and service to drive economic and workforce development in Alabama. ACRE and Alabama, a championship collaboration. Learn more at www.acre.culverhouse.ua.edu. We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. On the line with me is Jeb Brooks. Since the age of 8, he has loved planes and trains. Over the past 3 years, he's transformed his enthusiasm into a business. He now travels professionally. Well, he travels as a professional YouTuber. His website is jebbrooks.com. Thousands upon thousands of subscribers, tens, if not hundreds of thousands, no, certainly hundreds of thousands of miles traveled. Jeb, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to What's Working.
Thank you for having me, Cam. Very much looking forward to chatting with you and your listeners.
Well, I think what you do is just very interesting to a guy like me to be a professional YouTuber, a paid YouTuber, whatever that means. And I've looked for years for a quote unquote social media influencer to interview on this show to figure out how it is that they do what they do, why they do what they do. You're the closest I've come. So tell everybody what it is that you do, how you got into it, and maybe you can give us some insight into how and why you get paid to be on YouTube. That's really of interest to me.
Sure. I think you're not alone. So many folks take a look at social media and see the influence and the size and scope of it, but don't really understand the business end of it. It seems to be kind of a mystery, and I'm not sure why that is, but I'm honored to be able to peel back some of the layers of that onion for you and your listeners.
Yeah. So how did it start?
Yeah, I make videos about travel. And it all started because I was working in the consulting business, and that took me on the road a lot. I was always looking for ways to pass time, particularly on long flights. And I realized there was this sort of tiny genre of people on YouTube that would post videos about what they experienced, particularly on business or first-class long-haul flights. I had an opportunity to speak at a conference in Porto, Portugal, several years ago, and I booked a flight with Air France that I knew nobody had made a video about, and brought a camera along, made a little video about this flight, and when I look at it today, it's awkward and uncomfortable because I was just starting out, but I put it out there, and it got views. I wasn't really paying attention to who was looking at it or how many people were looking at it, but it grew, and that was really where it all began. Once I found that I really enjoyed the process of sharing my travels. As you mentioned in the introduction, I've always loved transportation, and it sort of gave me an opportunity to build a community around it. And since about 2017, I've been publishing regularly about trips I've taken.
And the viewer is living vicariously through you? Are they other travelers comparing their Air France flight to your flight? Who are your viewers?
Fantastic question. Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of times people who get into YouTube kind of falter. I think they forget that they're not creating content necessarily for themselves, but for a specific sort of subset of viewers. And in my case, there are really two primary kind of typical viewers. One are the folks who are, as you said, kind of living vicariously. They want to see what it's like to do this. And the other group, and we can certainly get into how COVID and the way COVID has impacted travel has changed this a bit. But the other group are people who are seriously considering taking a trip. So maybe you're getting ready for a big family trip over to Europe, or you want to celebrate a momentous occasion or something with an upgrade to business class or first class. You might run over to YouTube and see what that experience is like to get a sense of whether it's worth the extra cost. So at the end of the day, it's also a review, kind of a review of a product or an experience as well.
So it would seem to me, let's take this Air France flight, and I know that's was the first one. I've looked through your website. You've done hundreds since then. Is the airline on board with this? Do they know they're being reviewed as you're taking off? Do they have I hear there's some restaurants across different cities that have the citywide restaurant reviewers picture on the wall in the kitchen of the restaurants. And they say, if you see this guy in this room, let us know so that we make sure he or she gets special treatment. Do you have a picture like that up in the galley of every Air France flight? When they see you get on, they go, oh, here's the guy. I mean, are you celebrated or loathed that way by the airlines?
So I think that's an interesting question. I can't say for sure. So I don't coordinate with airlines when I'm making a video. It's as long as their rules are clear, and most of them are, and that you're able to share your own experience on board. They want their story told. Then you're able to share your story on social media. I certainly don't record other passengers or go out of my way to be a distraction to other people. So the answer to your question is no, I'm not coordinating with the airlines when I'm reviewing them. The second answer to your question, however, is that it's become more complicated as the channel has grown, which is to say, the airline industry is an interesting one. A lot of people do a job just because they're doing a job. People who work in the airlines tend to have a real passion for it, and they love it. And so one of the ways they pass time when they're not working is watching creators like me on YouTube making videos. So I tend to get recognized, I guess is one way to say that. So while my picture may not be up in the galley, a lot of cabin crew do recognize me, and so that becomes a little bit awkward as I'm trying to be anonymous.
Yeah, so they know who you are. It's interesting to me that the airlines, I guess the people in the industry, are fond of what you do. They live it and breathe it. It seems to me that your market, it might just be a lot of people that already do what you do, that are just want to share your experience and compare it to their own firsthand experience. Less aspirational viewers who someday hope to take a first class flight, and more consumers of the product who are comparing experiences.
I think that's very fair, Cam. I think there's such enthusiasm out of this. It's interesting. I often say when I speak with most people in my real life, they say that travel is this unpleasant, terrible experience, that it's become so painful and difficult. And I think there's some truth to that. Now, the irony is that I've made a whole business out of celebrating this aspect of the human experience in 2022 that most people really despise. It just goes to show you the way that community can be built inside social media. It's there are people who have passion for so many different things, and the way social media connects us to each other allows us to build communities around whatever it is we're interested in. That maybe it's a little more difficult to find passionate communities in your local spot.
Tell me what it was like when your phone rang or your email chirped or whatever, and it was YouTube saying, "Hey, we like your work. You've gained quite a few followings. We'd like to pay you to continue to put content on YouTube." Is that the way it works?
I think this is a great question, because this is where the mystery comes in.
Yeah.
YouTube and Google are really, at the end of the day, in the business of selling ads. And creators like me facilitate that. And what YouTube is constantly trying to do it with their algorithm and their artificial intelligence is find out what all kinds of different viewers are interested in watching. And what that's about is getting eyeballs onto content and then having those eyeballs watch throughout the entire video. And what that means is you get more ads shown, right? And so YouTube has a process wherein a creator, anybody can sign up with a YouTube account and start making videos. Once you reach a certain threshold of views and subscribers and some other metrics, you become what's called monetized, which means they'll pay you for the ads that are on your channel. And it certainly takes some time and to reach those thresholds. And frankly, because I was just creating this content at the beginning, because I was just doing it out of sheer enjoyment, I didn't pay attention to any of those metrics. And so when that monetization email came through, hey, congratulations, you can turn on ads. It didn't even really think about it. And in fact, didn't have it set for a while. So it's really been in recent times that I've converted this thing into being the business that it is.
So this is the tacky question, have you been able to quit your previous consulting job and replace that revenue with the YouTube ad revenue?
I serve on the board of the company. I actually own it with my brother. So I've certainly stopped my day-to-day consulting work, and most of my time is spent on this work, on creating these YouTube videos. The good news about it is it's more than paying for itself. We're able to travel to the places that we want to visit and make the videos we want to make, and do it thanks to the folks who are watching our videos and consuming the ads.
That's awesome. That's just awesome. So what would happen if, let's say, I'm a big fan of Briggs & Riley luggage. Briggs & Riley will reach out to you and say, hey, we want to sponsor your YouTube show. Does that eliminate any revenue from the YouTube ads? Can you do both?
You can absolutely do both. I don't. I have in the past, and it adds a layer of what's the word? I hesitate to use the word, but accountability that goes along with it, right?
Yeah.
Because if I have a sponsor, then I need to run the video by them, make sure they're okay with it. Whereas I really just want to enjoy the experience, and the AdSense or Google ad revenue is perfectly acceptable. That said, many creators find additional revenue in many ways, sponsorships being one, and there are loads of folks who are very interested in becoming sponsors. I probably get a couple of dozen emails a week of folks trying to start a conversation around that.
Wow.
But there's also merchandise or Patreon, which is a service that allows individual viewers to contribute to creators that they really support.
When we come back, I want to talk numbers with you, not dollars, but numbers. How many viewers? I'd like to know if YouTube or Google or whomever is coaching you on how to create content that will get more views, and how they're inspiring you to keep going and perhaps to create more, or asking you to branch off into different things. And I don't know, it's just fascinating to me, the world of content creation. I'm in it, but not at your level and not to your degree. And I want to hear more about it when we come back from break. You're listening to What's Working. I'm on the line with Jeb Brooks. He's a professional YouTuber traveling the world, documenting his travels and getting paid by YouTube to do so. We'll be right back. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. Sitting with Cajun Mike, owner E3 Termite and Pest Control. Cajun Mike, there are people I know that think their house is fully protected because there's some bait stations around the house. What's your thoughts?
My thought personally is bait stations do work. However, I do not believe in them as a standalone product.
What else do they need?
We do 3, 4, sometimes 5 or 6 treatments on the house. We will do a true liquid perimeter treatment. We do hollow void treatments, and we use bore care on wood when we can access it.
It's a thorough treatment, top to bottom, it sounds like, much more so than the bait station.
That is correct.
How do they find you, Cajun Mike?
They can find me at 251-850-PEST or e3pest.com.
e3pest.com. Customer service never goes out of style. In fact, I think it's safe to say that customer service is more valuable and more important now more than ever. Hi, this is Cam Marston. One thing that my over 200 episodes of What's Working has taught me is how important customer service is to building and maintaining a thriving business. It's the growing need for customer service that's led me to partner with one of the state's leading customer service trainers to create our program called Delivering 5-Star Customer Service. Your team will get one 90-minute training session per month for 6 consecutive months. Each session builds on the skills learned the previous month, allowing your customer-facing teams to practice before moving on to the next lesson. And the 6 lessons address everything from appearance to electronic communications to conflict resolution to maintaining a service mindset. Our program travels and is delivered in person at your workplace, nothing virtual. You simply can't practice the level of the skills this course teaches virtually. For more information, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's schedule a time to talk. Remember, you have less to fear from outside competition than you do from discourtesy and bad service from inside your own company. Again, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's talk about your business. Jeb Brooks is on the line with me, professional YouTuber traveling the world. We're going to talk numbers here in a moment, viewers, miles, things of that nature. I think we can prepare to have our mind blown. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. So, Jeb, of all the things and numbers that you track, what are the most important 2 or 3 that tell you whether you're, quote unquote, doing well or not?
It's let's see. One would be monthly views. So how many people are watching the videos that we put out each month? I would say another one is the number of videos that we produce each month, and maybe the third is a little bit of a vanity number, and it's the number of subscribers, the number of people who feel committed enough to the channel and what we're putting out that they want to be part of it.
So what are your monthly views?
Yeah, so we're between 4 and 5 million views a month right now, which is a mind-blowing number.
Unbelievable to me that there are 4 to 5, and I don't wish to diminish your work. I don't wish to slander you in any way, but saying I can't believe 4 to 5 million people a month watch your travels. Did you ever know you were that interesting?
No, and it's funny. I was a friend of mine who does the same thing I do. He's a British guy, Paul Lucas. We both happened to be in Miami last week at the same time. We were doing trains and planes and just happened to coordinate with each other. And we were laughing over breakfast about how people forget that we're just normal people. Like, we go to the grocery store, we go to visit our nieces and nephews, and we're just normal people. But for some reason, when people see you on a screen, they think you're something else.
Yeah, that's amazing. 4 to 5 million views per month. Okay, how about number of subscribers? That was the second number.
Yeah, that's that ego metric. So many creators really focus on this. So, if I only have 1,000 subscribers or 100,000 subscribers or whatever the number is, But really, what matters is that the number of views, which we just talked about, and then also the watch time, which is a related metric. In other words, how much of a video are people watching? It's another indicator. But we're at 430 or 440,000 subscribers, which is another mind-blowing number.
Yeah.
It's again, I go back to my earlier point I shared with you. This is a part of travel that most people find pretty negative, right? Getting on an airplane, going through security, fighting the crowds at airports. And yet, this number of people are engaged with it and are enjoying it and come back, week after week, month after month, which is really flattering.
Do you, does Google, does YouTube coach you on making your videos more watchable or appealing? Do they help you create the content in any way?
Yes, in a way. So there is a partner manager program I participated in, a while ago, which is kind of it has some courses and that kind of thing about various things. But really the best way to make better content is to simply pay attention to what the viewers are doing. There's so much data, as you can imagine, YouTube being owned by Google, there's more data than you can what to do with. But by reading it, you really get a sense of what works and what doesn't. And the viewers, will be the most honest people on the planet with the benefit of the anonymity provided by the internet in the comments section on a video. So, in terms of learning what works and what doesn't, every week is an opportunity.
So give me an example. What doesn't work? Tell me about a mistake you've made or a failure or something like that taught you a lesson.
I am an aviation enthusiast. And so what that means is I love, a good takeoff. I love looking out the window and having my forehead glued to the thing and watching it from beginning to end. Well, that's usually, depending on the airplane, that's a 30 to 60 second process. And I want you to think about watching particularly reality television these days, really anything. And when you watch that television, think about how quickly the camera changes.
Oh, yeah.
Every 1 to 4 seconds, and 4 seconds is too long. When I started this, 4 seconds was really, pretty typical. But now you'll get a shot that's 1 to 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And a mistake I've made, one of many, I'm sure I'm making even more today, is that I really lingered on that takeoff shot because I thought it was cool.
Right.
But the viewers made it very clear to me they didn't want to see that. And so now, I do my best when I'm editing content to keep those shots short. Even if it's something I really think is beautiful and want to watch, it's really, everything a creator does has to be about the viewer.
So do you have a producer? Do you have someone that helps you edit, or do you do all that? Once the plane's in the air, you start editing footage.
Yeah, exactly. So my wife is actually, very supportive in the business. She does all of the planning and sort of coordinating and that kind of work. But in terms of editing, that's all me. Publishing the videos, sort of doing all of the administrative stuff around the creation of the videos and the other social media promotion we do. That's me.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot of work. So I have this radio show and I turn it over to the producer to clean it up, to pretty it up, to get it ready for broadcast. It's not video. It's much easier, I would suspect, than having to do a lot of the 1, 2, 3, 4 second cuts that you talked about in video. But even then he does a lot of work. It's got to be double or triple for the video work. And that's impressive that you do it yourself. You've got to know what to capture and then how to edit it at the same time. How did you learn to do that?
On YouTube, Cam. That's truly been one of the great joys. I've talked to a lot of other creators and people who are in this space, and everybody says, I'm at the point where I really need to get an editor, and I just really enjoy the process of creating the story. I just love it, and it's been a huge learning curve because I don't have a background in this at all. But it's really one of the real pleasures of the whole process.
Do you also review hotels? Do you review, seems trivial, but the cab ride between the airport to the hotel? It would seem that the toehold that you have in reviewing this air travel, and you've mentioned trains as well, would lend you to a credible reviewer of the things that come with travel, hotels, restaurants, things of that nature.
I don't think I would be. I think that what I know well enough to talk about is our sort of moving from one place to another in what I'll call style, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I'll do luxury motor coach experiences. There's a lot of startup activity right now in that space, which is to say, kind of first or business class seats on buses. To go kind of point to point within the United States, or trains, as you've mentioned. That's been a tremendous. There's been tremendous growth in the interest in rail travel around the world in the past 2 years. It's been interesting that people have become less interested in air travel and more interested in rail travel for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Really in the last two.
What about, let's see, what was I going to ask? Cruises.
Yeah, so we're very interested in looking into some experiences, be it like river cruises or transatlantic crossings, transpacific crossings. What we really, there's an interesting dynamic that seems to play back to what we're learning from the audience. The audience that we've cultivated and what seems to work for us on YouTube is the idea of going from one place to another. And so if you think about most cruises, you start in one place, you go around, and you end up in the same place.
Yeah.
It's really going from point A to point B.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what the audience wants to know is if you land in a different or disembark in a different destination, that's what appeals to them. That's what whets their appetite.
That seems to be the case. And I think a lot of that can go to, there's a genre of content on YouTube called unboxing, where people literally make videos unboxing, something they bought or something they acquired. If you think about shows like on television, like American Pickers or Storage Wars, or all these kinds of shows where people are even Shark Tank. These are all shows where things are getting opened up. And that's really kind of where we fit too. It's about moving from one place to another and opening up what the experience is like on the way. That's
interesting. I got a new computer, and that's one of the hassles you and I had prior to us starting the recording, is me figuring out this new MacBook Pro. And it came in, and I went into my home office, and I closed the door behind me, and I locked the door behind me, and I turned on some ambient music, and I slowly unboxed this new computer because it's a magical experience. The choirs of angels were singing, and last thing I wanted was anybody stepping in to disturb this extraordinary experience of touching this new computer for the first time. So I guess I can somehow relate to that. When we come back from break, I want to hear what your holy grail of travel may be. Are you hoping to sit next to Richard Branson on a nice trip to outer space? Is the Orient Express, the train ride, on your list? I read that Delta will have a new direct between LAX and Papeete, which caught my attention, though it's a big stretch for me. I want to hear what your holy grail of travel experiences will be when we come back from break. How's that sound?
Fantastic.
Jeb Brooks is on the line with me, professional YouTuber, documents his travels, particularly in the air. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston, brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culverhouse College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. Be right back. The Alabama Center for Real Estate, known as ACRE, strives every day to be a valued resource that supports and promotes Alabama's real estate industry and promotes economic and workforce development across the great state of Alabama. ACRE and Alabama, a championship collaboration. Get to know ACRE and learn more about their offerings and their events at their website, www.acre.culverhouse.ua.edu. Jeb Brooks is on the line with me. He's telling tales of exotic travel and the way he documents them, and this is the kicker, gets paid to do so. And he's not a professional travel writer that you'd see in a magazine, a glossy magazine. He's a YouTuber, does it on YouTube, and it's pretty dang cool, to be honest with you. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston, brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culverhouse College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. Jeb, give me your, let's say, top 3 dream trips, destinations that if you could do it and record it and talk about it, it would check off the big boxes for you, and your listeners, or viewers rather, would just eat it up. What are they?
Oh, that's an impossible question, because I don't know what the route planners and travel experts are going to come up with next. But I'll talk about what I think I know exists and what's coming down the pipe that I'm really excited about. And one is Qantas have talked about this for years, called Project Sunrise, which are flights without stopping from Sydney to London or to New York. So those I think are going to come down the pike in the next a couple of years. So really excited about those. Those are 22, 23-hour flights.
Unbelievable that there is.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that there are airplanes that can stay aloft that long without refueling.
Well, that's been the real challenge. It's actually twofold. On the one hand, it's been the technical. How do we put enough fuel on an airplane to go that long? And number two, how do we make sure we do it in a safe way for passengers? Because there's some health consequences for sitting that long, right? So Project Sunrise involves sort of space dedicated on the plane for some exercising and moving around, which is necessary for something that long. But it is amazing, and there is certainly demand. Perth to London, I did a few years ago, which is the closest they've been able to get. Perth, of course, in Western Australia to London, and that was a long flight. The longest flight in the world is currently from Singapore to New York's JFK. Which I've done, and that was a mental challenge. You're talking about 18 hours, 19 hours in the air, and you've got essentially a couple of full days up there, really, which is a challenge. But other aspirational trips for me, Cam, man, I would love to cross the Atlantic Ocean on the Queen Mary 2. I think that'd be a pretty incredible experience. That's sort of old school.
That is old school, but that's reasonable. The previous one you were talking about, these flights, you want to do them when they are invented, essentially. You can do the Queen Elizabeth or the Queen Mary, whatever you said, right now.
That's exactly right. It's just a matter of finding the time. I'll be in Europe probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 times this year, and it's tough to dedicate 3 or 4 days to cross when I could do it in 5 or 6 hours.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a matter of managing the time really more than anything. But then the third sort of aspiration, there's so many incredible luxurious trains. You mentioned the Orient Express, but there's so many that cross through beautiful scenery. One that I would recommend to anyone is right here in the United States, the California Zephyr. Amtrak's service from Chicago out to San Francisco through some of the most beautiful parts of the United States of America. And it's an absolutely incredible experience that I could not recommend highly enough to anyone and everyone in this country, or anywhere for that matter, to get a sense of the expanse and beauty of the United States.
I've read about that one recently, very recently. I want to say last week I came across an article on that one somewhere, and I thought, now that's a stretch for somebody like me, but doable just because of the time. We've got 4 kids right now, and being able to isolate ourselves like that would be difficult. Now, I want to go back to this Singapore to New York thing that you did, or Perth rather. Now, I've read that some of these, and a buddy of mine was on one of these flights and got one of these suites. Maybe it was on Emirates or something like that, where it's like a room, a bedroom, and it has a fold-out bed, not a lay-flat seat, but a fold-out bed. And one of the things he said to me is, you wouldn't believe the wine list, that the wine list on this thing was extraordinary. And the question is, why would you put so much wine on a plane? That's weight. That's dead weight. Of course, it's a luxury. But did you experience that? The lay flat bed and the big screen TV on your wall? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so there's so much competition at the upper end, at the front end of the airplanes these days, in terms of first or business class seats. And there was a lot of thinking that, okay, this is going to go away because, businesses aren't paying their employees to travel that way anymore. But leisure travelers have filled the void pretty quickly. And airlines are really trying to outdo each other with a bigger TV or a bigger bed or whatever. And so, yeah, wine is certainly heavy, but they can charge a premium for those kinds of experiences. And your friend is telling you about the wine list, which is exactly what they're after. Because he's not just telling you, he's telling everybody he knows, right?
Yeah,
and so
true.
then that sells more seats. I've been so incredibly fortunate, Cam. So incredibly fortunate to have a number of experiences like that in first and business class cabins with just incredible comforts. Emirates has in their 777-300s a suite just like you're describing. It's it's a private room. Etihad, before they retired their A380s, had something called a residence, which was actually 3 rooms that you could book, and it was truly a hotel room in the sky with your own shower on an A380, your own bed, your own sitting room. Just an absolutely incredible experience. Unfortunately, I missed that one, and I really, really regret it. But,
yeah. So do you, here comes a tacky question. Do you pay what I would find on the internet for these things, or do you work out a deal with the airlines to get access to these suites?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. I think that's a very important component. I always pay for my tickets. I think it's really important to be able to provide a credible reaction to the experiences. So I always pay for those seats. And yeah, I mean, I'll use a combination of cash if, that's the only option available, or, I use a lot of miles with credit card programs or airline programs.
When you're on the ground, it seems like you're getting paid the primary work is getting paid to document these flights. So do you get down, let's say you land in London, do you say, all right, I got to go home tomorrow. I got to be in the air as soon as possible because that's what I'm getting paid to do. Not be in London and go to the Tower of London or Big Ben, but to get back on a plane and go home. Are you turning around quickly with each destination or going on to a new destination with each landing?
It really depends on a number of factors, but if it's what my wife and I call a work trip, which is it's just me by myself going to get content, we'll try to batch it. So, for example, I've got a trip coming up to London in the next week or two, where I'm flying over to London, take a train up to Scotland, fly to Paris, take a train back to London, to fly back to the U.S., and that'll all be in about 4 days. Yeah. So those kinds of trips, they're hard, but what that'll do is give me, 5 or 6 weeks worth of content.
Oh, I see. So here's a word for you, or a hyphenated word: pulmonary embolism.
Yes, that's fair.
Yeah. How do you prevent those?
Well, I think it's a number of things. And primarily it's exercise, right? It's not just sitting. And, it takes us back to that Project Sunrise flight for Qantas. They've had to really think about that and bring in a lot of medical professionals to focus on those issues, because you're talking about a 22, 23, 24-hour flight. That's just dangerous, and passengers have to be encouraged to think about those issues. You're exactly right.
I had one in an Atlanta airport. I've been a Diamond Medallion flower for 15 years, and I had one in an Atlanta airport after a flight, and it changed me, man. It changed me. I've got the scars on my back to prove it, where the blood got caught in my lungs. I'm lucky to be here, but it changed my attitude. I love travel. I don't want to travel as much as you do, but it changed my thinking about it a lot. And I got to know this pill called Xarelto, which I now take before every flight of 6 hours or more. I don't want that to happen to me. And I've heard stories. A friend of mine was standing around the luggage carousel, and this honeymoon couple just getting back from their honeymoon. He had been sitting next to them on the plane. He was so excited for them. They were in the bliss of a newlywed, and she dropped dead at the luggage carousel from a pulmonary embolism. And I thought, these stories exist. You're smart enough to know what they are. You're smart enough to know how to prevent them. And I certainly don't want to take away the magic of what it is that you do and take away any celebration of what it is that you do. It's amazing. And I love it that you've found this revenue source this way. But be careful, my friend. Don't let me read about you.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think, one of the many lessons I've learned from this experience is to savor each day. Yeah. I mean, this is an unbelievable life that I get to live, and I feel incredibly fortunate, not only to get to do it, but to get to share it with others who share the same passion.
Who are eating it up and loving what it is that you do. So listeners are certainly going, where do I find this guy? Tell the listeners how and where they can find you, if perhaps you can add some subscribers to your channels.
Oh, I'd be honored. I love the great state of Alabama. So the best way to find me is just to head to jebbrooks.com. That's JEB BROOKS.com. That'll take you right to the YouTube channel, and you can check out some of our videos and see if it's something that you're interested in learning more about.
You know what I'm going to do is I've been there, but now I'm going to watch carefully for the edits and to see how it is that you move the camera so quickly or change the views so quickly, 1 to 4 seconds of content per thing. My wife and daughters love reality TV, and that's one of the things that drives me crazy watching it is that the camera's never still. I don't get to see these people for very long, but they eat it up, man. They line up in front of the TV every night to watch it together and squeal and holler, and all I do is holler. Anyway, I'm happy for you, Jeb. JebBrooks.com. They can find the website there. They can learn more about you there. And I wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for this time, Jeb. It's something I've always wondered about, and you've peeled the layers back for me. You've told me what's inside. It's fascinating.
Well, thank you so much, Cam. It's been great to be with you and your listeners, and I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what we do.
Thank you. Safe travels, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
We'll be back after this break for final comments. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston, brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, Culverhouse College of Business, University of Alabama. This is Cam Marston in the studio with Cajun Mike. Cajun Mike, what's going on at E3 Pest Control? What you guys doing today that's different?
Well, what we're doing different is we are treating homes that have spray foam installation, and we're able to give them a full bond, whereas other companies are not able to.
How does the treatment work with the spray foam?
Basically, we spray the spray foam with Burr Care. Burr Care absorbs into the spray foam. It prevents termites from landing on it and creating an above-ground carton.
Is there any restrictions or limits to how you can do this, or is it any home with spray foam?
Basically, any home with spray foam.
How do they find you, Cajun Mike?
Find me at 251-850-7378 or e3pest.com.
That's e3pest.com.
Hey, this is Billy Duran. I'm the president of Threaded Fasteners. And when I'm not down at the Nut House, I'm listening to What's Working with Cam Marston. Now back to the show.
Thanks, Jeb. That was fascinating. What an interesting life you lead. Living on the airplane. But my friend, I do want you to be careful of that gremlin, the embolism. That thing put me down for a while, and it was awesome. We're back. You're listening. It was awful. It was not awesome. It was awful. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. Jeb lives on the airplanes. He documents what he does. I thought it was very interesting that he can combine about 5-6 days of travel and create a couple months or a month of content by filming each of the legs and being very cognizant of what he's doing to making sure he's pulling out that camera or that video recorder, whatever it may be. Probably just his phone, in the right time, in the right places, and capturing the right things. And I think we are in the world of content creation, and I know you know this just like I know this, and I never thought it would be a world that I'm in, but certainly am. I don't have hundreds of thousands of subscribers or millions of viewers on YouTube, nothing like that. I'm very pleased with the work that we've done and the audience we've created. However, he's at a different level, a consumption of stuff. And I think his viewer, and you see this on his website, is a good bit younger than the market for this podcast is or the radio show is. My listeners are 45-year-old or older, and I've said this so many times on the show, generally male, influencer position in his or her business, most likely a male in the influencer business. About 70% of the listeners are males. And I'm not sure that they consume an extraordinary amount of YouTube content like the under 45-year-old subscribers do. Watching my kids' behavior, I recognize that I am not there. I do not consume media the way that they do. Anyway, very interesting. Find us online. Jeb promoted his website. I'll do the same with mine. whatsworkingcam.com or cammarston.com. Brand new website. Please take a look. You can find the website at whatsworkingcam.com. Follow us on social media. Love to have you join us along. Got some great suggestions recently for guests and working to get one on the show. He came down from COVID and hopefully he's bouncing back. We'll have him in a couple of weeks. Show is produced by John Thompson with Ion Digital. That's it for this week. Have a good week, everybody. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate.